2 weeks ago, there was a lot of people around the country that were freaking out over the mass exodus from the Colorado Buffaloes football program right after the spring game. Oh, haters. Let's check back in on Coach Prime and the Buffaloes now. Welcome back to the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins. And if you love college football, you know you're in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Well, folks, the number on your screen is the number of players that have left the Colorado Buffaloes program since last season's 1-11 season in Boulder. 71. Now, this was a cause of alarm for a lot of folks in and around the program, the players that were in it, the players that were leaving it. And, you know, there's been talk from pundits and creators and haters, all the haters, ever since about maybe this was just a little bit more than what Coach Prime, he bit off a little more than he could chew. That's what you're hearing from a lot of places. Now, in view of the fact that they were 1-11, I've been saying for most of this time that I figured it was probably going to work itself out. But I would tell you that this is the most in a single season. And even I thought, well, maybe you need to keep a few of them around. Hell, what do I know, though? Apparently, he didn't. As we speak right now, from that 71 players gone, you get a total of course, 85 scholarship players. 71 left in the portal. He has now added 43 players through the transfer portal. There are a few more out there that are, crystal ball headed in. You've got 17 high school recruits, 8 that were left over from last year's 1-11 team. So as of today, there are 68 scholarship players in the Buffaloes program. That leaves 17 scholarships remaining for portal additions. Hold the phone, hold the presses. Right as I'm getting the video uploaded and ready to put out for everybody today, seems there's another transfer coming to Boulder and Coach Prime. Oh, haters. Didn't think he could replenish it, huh? Well, I couldn't even get this video uploaded, and before there was another transfer into the Colorado Buffalo program. And this time it might, hey, look, I don't know what's going to happen here. I have a feeling that FSU might be getting a little irritated with Coach Prime, their former All-American. We're going to have to count them up later and talk a little bit about it. But as of now, Coach Prime adds former top 100 defensive lineman Bishop Thomas from Florida State. He is now, that would be the 44th incoming transfer since he got to the program in December. And there are only 16 available scholarships left to give out to either more transfers which there's still probably at least 2 more that I can think of, or for your 2024 high school recruiting class, of which, I mean, does he even end up recruiting high school kids at this point? Stay tuned. And there's at least a few more out there. We'll get into who some of them are here in just one second. And of course, you've got the high school recruiting class for 2024 that he is working very hard. Coach Prime and his staff are working very hard to get into Boulder to strengthen that team. Obviously, coming into this, Coach Prime knew what he was doing, coming in with a 40-40-20 method that he was going to work with. 40% being graduate transfers coming in through the portal. He was going to bring in another 40% of undergrad transfers through the transfer portal as well. And then also around 20% high school recruits for this upcoming season. Now, he's pretty close to that, actually. 20. He actually does have about 20%, though, as holdovers when you start looking at it with 8 players coming through. So you've got of the remaining guys that are coming back. And if you remember coming into this thing, obviously Coach Prime, the first thing he said when he met with his team at Colorado was, you might as well go ahead and jump into the portal because we're going to try to push you out anyway. I've got my own luggage, and it's Louis. Now, obviously with 71 players having left, now some of those guys were already gone from August. Once they fired Coach Carl Durrell, you had some guys that jumped into the portal at that time. Not all of them came at this point, but as many as 41 players have entered the portal since Coach Prime arrived. Now, among the guys that are coming back, though, Anthony Hankerson, Caleb Foria, Eric Olson, Louis Passarello, Van Wells, Gerard Christian Lichtenhan, and obviously Carter Edwards, and then Joshka Gustav. Those guys are all holdovers from the previous staff. They've made it through the gauntlet that Coach Prime promised to put them through to see if they were built for one of his teams. So when you start looking at that, I mean, that's pretty solid. Now, obviously he added the number 25 overall class in terms of recruiting, which is great. Coming in, he had just a little over a month to add his high school recruits. He's obviously he knew what he was going to do with that 40-40-20 model that they were looking to build their team through. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but he ended up keeping 20% of the players. But you did end up with, and nobody, I don't think anybody really expected him to completely turn over the entire roster, at least not in one season. But it looks like that's going to happen. Overall, you now have a total of, as I said there, it says 68. That leaves you with 17 open scholarships. Now, there's a lot of guys out there on the radar for these Buffaloes. Some of the guys and actually some of these guys that are actually, there's a lot of hot competition for them. Guys like Williams Wanieri, the defensive tackle from Kansas City area. He's been crystal balled to go to Oklahoma, but he was at the spring game for Colorado. It's one of their big targets. Obviously, they're going to continue to try to add through. They're going to try to continue to add some of these top defensive players. As you were seeing a lot of the needs that were going to still be there, particularly once you looked at that spring game, was along that offensive line. Skill guys, and not even all their skill guys were there. But skill-wise, they looked pretty good. With Travis Hunter kind of playing both sides of the ball, you obviously have Shedeur Sanders playing quarterback, the kid can spin it. But you even had a couple of, there was a trio actually of wide receivers that a lot of people expected that Coach Prime would probably keep around. He didn't. As a matter of fact, there's just in the last few days, you've seen that another, well, a holdover that they kind of expected would probably be staying in wide receiver Jordan Tyson. He has moved on and he's actually committed to the Oklahoma Sooners. The Sooners obviously have needed to build up their receiving core as well, as all of our Sooner fans know here on this channel. Um, there's a lot of talent in that room, but there's not as much proven talent. Now, what Coach Prime went out and did was add some proven talent through the portal. Obviously, when you start looking at guys like Jimmy Horn Jr., then you also really hard to add would be along in the trenches, which is where I think when you start looking at a 1-11 team, that's where you really need to make sure that you are making some big additions. But along the defense, which is something that I think everybody knows that Coach Prime is gonna definitely focus in and make sure that defense is sound. Obviously he played on the defensive side of the ball as a Hall of Famer himself, being the best cornerback of all time. But he's gone in and made big time work of the transfer portal on both sides of the ball. Some of the best added to this Colorado roster. And again, when it was everybody's freaking out 2 weeks ago thinking, oh my gosh, this is way too many guys when you've got 41 guys in the transfer portal. As you saw what he was saying on the Pat McAfee show, that's all. He wasn't concerned. He was not concerned because he knew that he was going to make some big additions, and it looks as though he's done that. Not just since the spring game, but if you start looking throughout the additions of his sons, Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback, Shiloh Sanders as well, the safety, who is a grad transfer coming in from Jackson State. He also has added Willie Gaines from Jackson State as well, another wide receiver. I believe he's the guy that came from Tennessee and was making a big impact for JSU a year ago. You also have pretty impressive running back in Kavasier Smoke out of Kentucky. You also had defensive backs from Florida State. Omarion Cooper is going to be in the lineup this year. He really kind of hit the Florida State pretty hard. He got safety Brennan Gant coming from Florida State as well. You have Miles Slusher, defensive back, coming in. Demoy Kennedy, linebacker, and a top 100 player from Alabama who was a 4-star in I believe the 2021 class. Defensive line, he went through, and another Florida State pickup, Derek McClendon. That's a big time get. He went and got a former 5-star out of Washington. He hasn't really lived up to that 5-star status at Washington, but Savell Smalls looks like he's going to be a nice addition. They're going to try to coach him up there in Colorado. Also, you see Chaz Wallace, another defensive lineman out of Fresno State. Amari McNeil, former 3-star out of high school, Tennessee prospect, another big-time player. Leonard Payne Jr., another defensive lineman. They really focused in there on that D-line, which is, I think, obviously what you have to build up, along with an offense that can get it done. Defensively, where it's won and lost is going to be in the trenches, and I think that obviously they've known that. Offensive line-wise, you've seen some big additions there as well. Savion Washington out of Kent State, also Jack Bailey out of Kent State. These are both obviously additions that came from the program that offensive coordinator Sean Lewis was the head coach at. Also have David Connor out of Florida, another big offensive line get for them there. These are all guys in that 6'4" to 6'8", 300-pound plus range, which is exactly the kind of guys that you want to pick up. Again, these are the kind of guys that you definitely can deal with. As I said, you've got guys like Jimmy Horn Jr., you've got Willie Gaines. E.J. Horton is another big-time pickup out of Marshall, another wide receiver. He appears to be going to be a strong addition to there as well. But when you've got guys like Jimmy Horn Jr., you also have Xavier Weaver. Both of these guys came in from South Florida, and so and they're big time players, as far as your receivers are concerned. Again, you've got Travis Hunter that came in from JSU. He was the number one overall recruit in the 2022 class, flipped from Florida State as well. And then with Kavase Smoke, that's a big time move as well. I think along that offensive line, you've got, and then you've got Tarvaris Dawson, a wide receiver. And then you've got a bunch of guys coming in, true freshmen. They really did really well as far as freshman receivers were concerned. Isaiah Harge, Adam Hopkins, Omarion Miller, Jordan Onovu. I hope I said that right. Jacob Page and Asad Wasim. These are guys coming in as part of that top 25 recruiting class that he brought in. Dylan Edwards, another big time pickup as far as I think he was like the number 3 running back in the country coming out of, I believe, Kansas. This is a guy who had 3,500 all-purpose yards as a senior in high school. Big time pickup. Total of 17 total high school recruits. Hank Zelinskas, the offensive lineman. A lot of skill players at those positions that they're expecting to kind of, work into their spots. But of course, the quarterback job is Shador's. He had a big season last year. Obviously upwards of 40 touchdowns, 3,000 plus yards. This is, he only had six interceptions the entire season. You expect him to step in, be a big time player for that. You also have, as we speak right now, you have a total of 32 guys on offense, 32 guys on defense that have scholarships. When you start adding all this stuff up, as of right now, there's 38 total commitments, according to 247. Obviously, there are still some crystal balls out there for, obviously, AAC freshman of the year out of Houston, Alton McCaskill, who entered the transfer portal a week ago. Also, his teammate and a first team all AAC offensive lineman Cameron Johnson has also visited Boulder and Coach Prime. Those guys are expected to end up there with the Buffaloes as well. They would be huge additions for Colorado. They're obviously, I think they're going to be a big subtraction for Houston as well. So, with McCaskill and obviously Johnson, those are big time moves. I also believe, when you start looking at it, guys like, you got a former high school 5-star in Savelle Smalls on the defensive line, 4-star lineman. Demoy Kennedy might be one of the biggest pickups they could have possibly gotten. This is a guy out of Alabama. He's already known kind of what it takes to play at a very high level. He was playing at a high level there at Alabama. He makes the move there. Willie Gaines is going to be, again, I think that he's a special type of athlete, as is obviously Jimmy Horn Jr. These receivers look like they're going to be very, very good. Plus, you go in and get Omarion Cooper, who is one of the top defensive backs at Florida State. He comes in here. You've got, obviously, Travis Hunter playing the cornerback position. You've got the Cormani McLean, the number 1 corner of the 23 class, will also be with the Buffaloes when the fall camp gets underway. These are some big moves. Tarvaris Dawson, again, another 4-star wide receiver out of high school. He was a 4-star. This is a big move for them as well. These guys, he told everybody that he was bringing Louis luggage, and he apparently is. And for everybody that was worried and freaking out, it's obvious that to me that this is one of those deals where he knew what he was doing. It wasn't a concern for him. It may have been a concern for everybody else, but he came in with a plan. And that was kind of what he was talking about there on the Pat McAfee show, was that, look, I don't go to the drive-through without, knowing what I want when I get there. Nothing was done out of haste. Nothing was done. I don't think that you've seen him concerned at all about what was happening, whoever it might have been that was leaving. And I would tell you that he probably didn't want to lose Jordan Tyson. As an Oklahoma fan, I think that there's a lot of folks that are pretty excited about that move. I don't know why that ended up happening. You could have probably seen Now, this was probably a pretty big time loss in Seydou Traore. And the reason for that, obviously they were expecting big things out of him. What I would say about that move, and this is something I've been kind of thinking about and talking about with some of the other creators that we work with. If you look at Sean Lewis's offense, they didn't really use a tight end much for anything but blocking. And it sounded like the coaching staff his physicality wasn't exactly what Sean Lewis and the offensive staff was looking for there. So it isn't as much as a surprise as you might have thought it was. Again, all this alarm and worry, and and I think it's just a lot of doubt that has really come with Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. He's fairly new to coaching. I'll give you that. He's only been doing it for about 6 years, where he's been a head coach, whether it be from high school into JSU, and then now his first Division I stop at a power school or in a power conference, obviously with the Colorado Buffaloes. We will find out here. We should find out here in the next day or two what's going to happen with the media rights deal with the Pac-12. Is there a possibility that I'm hearing some things from some of our sources around that there's significant movement on a linear media rights partner for the Pac-12 to possibly stay together for the time being. We'll kind of see how that works out moving forward, if it works out money-wise and obviously visibility-wise for a program like Colorado, Utah, and the other two four corner schools, Arizona and Arizona State. That would probably be that tipping point. But as of right now, for all the alarm that was going on, Coach Prime has taken a program that he expected. He knew what he was trying to do. He came in, he had his model set up, whether they're a little off here, a little off there, for a 40-40-20, they knew they needed to flip this roster. They knew they needed to flip almost all of this roster around in view of the fact that you had a 1-11 season a year ago. This has not been a good program for quite some time at Colorado. In fact, since they've moved to the Pac-12, they've only had one winning season, and it hasn't been recently. So when you start to look at these things, you have to realize that this was a necessary thing if you're Coach Prime. Whether or not it was all going to be done in one, I think he bit off a huge portion of it to start with, and it was probably a little risky, but maybe not as risky as you might think in view of the fact that it's Coach Prime. He recruits he's got amazing recruiters throughout his staff. He's a closer when it comes to recruiting as well. They've been doing very well raising NIL funds to attract some of these big time recruits. And so expect to see some more additions coming through there. I don't know how many he's going to end up left with by the time this is all over, but I can tell you that it's surely not over in the portal heading into fall camp, with fall camp being just over 100 days away, or the first game being just over 100 days away. So I would expect that you're probably going to see him pick up a few more of those folks. The first few years, you have to kind of expect a lot of movement when it comes to the transfer portal. That's just the way things work. I mean, this is the biggest recruiting class of all time in terms of transfer portal turnover. Obviously, 71 players have left this program. A lot of people were freaked out about that, but again, at 1-11, you probably needed that many guys to be gone. The guys that are still there, only 8 of them are making the cut with these guys. That kind of tells you that there really wasn't a ton of talent that they just couldn't live without moving forward. He's bringing in his own Louis luggage, as he said, and I'm still high on this team. I feel like they are going to probably. I've been saying this a lot. I'm going to stick with my prediction. I'm saying 7 games, first season out the block. It could even be a little better than that. It kind of depends on how the rest of the Pac-12 shakes out for this final season with USC and UCLA. Again, we'll talk a lot about as soon as we find out anything on this realignment stuff. that would decide whether or not you might see Colorado back in the Big 12 in the next couple of years. We're going to let you know about that as well. But as I said, I've been calling you haters out, and I love to call out haters, but it's crazy to me that so many people still believe that the coach doesn't know what he's doing here and that somehow he's just going to fall flat on his face. It may not have always been the prettiest or what you necessarily wanted to hear coming out of there, but he's never wavered on what he was trying to do. And I think it's obvious that he knows exactly what he's doing. Guys, do me a favor, hit that like button. It's huge for content creators like myself. That's a free way to be able to help this channel continue to move forward. You can always check out our podcast merchandise. That's just above me right here on the screen. We've got some cool stuff from the Colorado, for our Colorado audience. Got the Oh Haters hats, things like that. Go on there and check it out. Take a look at everything there. Always get licensed merchandise straight from our Fanatic store, right at our link. That's just below on the left-hand side of your screen. You can always support the show with tips as well through Venmo, Cash App, or that Super Chat heart. That's right below me on the right side of the screen at the bottom. Obviously, again, as I said, the free way to help out this program and to make sure that we continue bringing you this amazing content week after week is just to make sure you hit that like button, comment. These things seem like small interactions within the channel, but it's huge for us. This is how the algorithm picks us up and makes sure that it pushes us out there for other people to see. So share us with your friends, hit that like button. If you're not already a subscriber, we'd love to have you become a part of this channel that we're building day after day. Hey, let me know what you think in the comments, and we're going to see you on the next one. Have a good one. Hey, you guys all know the drill, right? Say it with me. Smash that red subscriber button. Like our videos. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Hey, we even have amazing pod merchandise right here in our store. Hey, while you're here, don't forget to check out all these other amazing channels and subscribe to them too.